Next panel, Matthew Johnson, Alysia Garoto, Becky Bretterson, Monica Asensio. How am I doing? Thank you. Debbie Garoto, Lindsay Ice. They will be followed by, that was the last, this is the last group of Group 4. They will be followed by the first group of Group 5, Eileen Romano, Mary Talley, Patrick Fabian, Adrian Evans-Stark, Paul Gabolis, I love this assistant, Sonia Smith, Matthew Johnson.
I am here.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, Senators. My name is Matthew Johnson. I am from Lumberton, Texas, in Hardin County. My representative is Senator Tommy Williams. Senators and fellow citizens, after listening to hours of both expert and public testimony, my support for SB 1 has only solidified. We first heard from Ms. Amy Miller this morning, Director of Whole Women's Health Clinics, who, among other things, stated that 2 of her 7 clinics had been upgraded to meet the ambulatory and surgical requirements which this bill proposes to apply to the remainder of the state. My question, and I think any sensible person's question ought to be, is, Madam, if this imposes an undue burden and is not necessary, if this will not improve the quality of health available to people, then why did she and her organization spend the money for the upgrade? Now, regarding the issue of an undue burden, I believe this is just a simple matter of tort law. If I were to harm one of the individuals with the opposite opinion, would I not be required by law to pay for the medical services I've imposed on this person? How then can anyone say to the people of Texas that the same law should not be applied to the abortion industry? In light of that question and in testimony we have heard regarding the horrors contained in the abortion facilities when complications arise, why should the abortion industry not pay for the harm they have caused to others? And lastly, I have heard the argument regarding poverty as a tool of opposition to this bill. However, the problem with this argument is that it abounds with economic illiteracy. The cause of poverty is the lack of production on the individual's part. It is not overproduction of their genital organs. Even though our own experience here in Texas has shown this to be true with companies continuing to relocate to our state, with this influx, Texas has shown this to be true with companies continuing to relocate to our state. Therefore, I'd like to nominate this argument as the chief joke, which we have been privileged to hear today, that children cause poverty.
Thank you. Alysia
It's Alysia Bowden Garoto.
Go ahead.
My name is Alysia Bowden Garoto. I live here in Austin. I'm represented by Senator Kirk Watson, and I strongly oppose this bill. And I want to thank you, Senator Nelson, and the committee for letting us testify and for letting this go on for so long. I know it's been a long day. I'm very concerned with the structure of this bill, that it is an omnibus bill. I think that if we were chiefly concerned with women's health, we wouldn't include a fetal pain provision. We would separate that out into a separate bill. I also think that the ambulatory surgical center requirements are going to create undue hardships on a lot of women throughout the state. I don't understand how they will make abortion any safer for women when abortion is already one of the most highly regulated procedures. It is an outpatient procedure. It is incredibly safe. It's even safer than giving live birth, and we allow women and midwives to have live births at home. I think that if we really want to prevent abortion, we need to increase access to contraception, and we need to increase education. I really think that if we want to make women safer, we need to make abortion safer and keep this safe legal procedure safe for women who choose it, and make sure that all women have access to these procedures. Thank you.
Thank you. Becky Bretterson.
I'm Becky Bretterson, and I come from Dallas, the 16th District, and John Carona is my senator. I'm a mother of a daughter who had an unplanned pregnancy. and I understand the tailspin that puts everyone in. But I'm grateful that my daughter chose to give her baby life, and he is due next month. At 20 weeks development, my daughter's unborn child could actually feel pain more intensely than you or I could. By 20 weeks, he was especially vulnerable because his pain system was fully established, but his pain-modifying system had barely begun to develop. Dr. David Birnbach is the president of the Society for Obstetric Anesthesia and Perinatology, and according to him, anesthesia is often administered directly to the fetus prior to surgery, quote, because even at these early gestational ages, the fetus moves away from the pain of the stimulation, unquote. Medical evidence supports the truth that unborn babies experience pain, thereby making abortion not only inhumane, but an intolerable brutality against defenseless human beings.
Thank you. Monica Asensio.
Monica Asensio.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and Committee, for allowing me to testify. I'm a constituent of Senator Kirk Watson, and I'm here to testify against SB 1 because it is institutional violence against Texas women. I come from a long line of generational domestic abuse, sexual, physical, and emotional, from which many of my relatives down in the Rio Grande Valley have struggled to heal. About 11 years ago, I moved to Austin, Texas, worked in a foster home for medically fragile children, and got to know our failed foster care system pretty well. After that eye-opening experience, I knew I could not, with a clear conscience, bring a life into this world. That was my choice to make. And because I was able to make that choice, I have had the privilege to help raise a handful of children so beloved to me, I don't want to imagine what my life would be without them. You see, I am a proud parent by choice, for choice, because I know what happens to those who are born unwanted in Texas. So please understand me when I say, unless you can single-handedly ensure that the life of every child born will be abuse-free, you are pro-birth, because that's the extent of your concern, and that's incredibly irresponsible and totally inadequate. If the issue was really about ending the need for abortion, the legislation would pass measures for comprehensive sex education in public schools. But they won't, so you have to ask yourself, why are we setting up girls to need abortions and criminalizing them when they do? It's no exaggeration to say that the current racist, classist, sexist, anti-life SB 1 would make slaves of the targeted demographic. And if you try to enslave me in an abusive family or relationship by using the physically and socially limiting mobility and agency of my pregnant state, you are complicit in perpetrating the cycle of violence against me, against my mother, my sisters, mis tías, mis primas. I stand with them today and the hundreds of thousands of Texas women of color, the rural poor, the victims of rape and incest, who couldn't be here to testify due to their dire circumstances. Thank you.
Debbie Georgatos.
Thank you. It's Debbie Georgatos. Thank you very much for allowing us all to speak today. I appreciate all of you. I'm from Dallas, Texas. My senator is John Carona. And I speak today as I'm an attorney, but also a former pro-choice person who's become pro-life. And I actually think this conversation we're having today is very healthy for the Texas and actually the national political conversation. Most people get surrounded by people who think like they do, and so the pro-choice advocates have one worldview and the pro-life the other. Part of what's happened because of this discussion and also Gosnell's prosecution is that more Americans are focusing on what abortion really is, not the abstract concept and not the slogans like health care for women, reproductive freedom, reproductive justice. Those are all words used that block or they disguise what the process really is that we're talking about. And the Gosnell hearing, what's happening in Houston, and actually anyone here or listening can go online and Google and read about the actual process of what abortion is. I think it's very healthy to focus on what that is. Also, I really respect the rule of law, including that we have to follow Roe versus Wade. But Roe versus Wade did not say abortion is an absolute right at any point, any time, for any reason. It actually spoke of the state's interest in protecting a child at some point in the course of this pregnancy. As we have more evidence as a developing society about a child's ability to feel pain when they're a fetus still, it is incumbent on responsible people to review how do we regulate abortion? Do we as a state have the obligation to actually attempt to care for that unborn child as we learn more and more about his or her state? Also, there have been a lot of kind of tough comments from some of the people today about, well, we're going to get you, you're going to hear about this at the next election cycle. I'll just point out that there is overwhelming evidence that Texas supports this type of legislation.
Thank you for being here. Lindsay Ice?
Yes, thank you. My name is Lindsay Ice. Kirk Watson is my senator, and I'm testifying against SB1. There are many reasons that these bills can be considered catastrophic. For me, there are two very personal reasons. First, I love the state of Texas. I chose this beautiful state as my home, and I would love to raise a family here. But if SB1 becomes law, I would be deeply, deeply afraid to live in Texas as a pregnant woman. I would fear that were anything to go wrong, a worst-case scenario, and I don't have very good luck, my options would be limited, and my doctors would be limited in their ability to offer me the best care possible. I would also be deeply, deeply afraid to raise a daughter here in Texas, knowing that her rights to make choices about her health and safety would be severely restricted. My second reason is that I'm a survivor of sexual I'm a survivor of sexual assault. I'm a human being who's intimately familiar with the feeling that my body is not my own, that certain things happening to my body are not my choice, but cannot be stopped. I just had to wait until it was over and try to survive. This is the condition that Texas would be forcing on the people who lose reasonable access to safe abortion services due to this bill. We would just have to wait until it was over and try to survive. This would be an assault on our rights and on our bodies, and it is not a promising way to begin the life of a child. I don't anticipate that I'll change the minds of anyone here who intends to vote for this bill, but I will ask you anyway, do not pass this bill. To those who vote against it, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to this panel for being here as well.